A warning from a doctor to Fresno County supervisors over care of inmates at the Fresno County Jail. That doctor says a private equity management company known as WellPath is making medical decisions despite a state law protecting from influence from private companies. So on this Wired Wednesday, GV Wire reporter Edward Smith joins us live from the GV Wire studios in Fresno to break down the allegations, what it means for inmates, and the legal history of WellPath. Good morning, Edward, and as always, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, Carl.
So let's go ahead and break it down. How did WellPath affect medical decisions supposed to be made by doctors?
Yeah, so like you said, first of all, California law has special laws different than many other states, saying that for-profit, companies cannot influence the decisions made by a doctor. That can include, nurses, administrators, especially other for-profit companies. But what this doctor was saying was that oftentimes decisions about what diagnostic tests, what referrals inmates would get, would have to first go through the contractor CFMG's independent management company, WellPath, which is a private equity firm. So this kept, people from getting like a CPAP machine that they need, a special CPAP machine that might cost an extra $200. This, the decisions like these were delayed. They would often delay, trips to the hospital and say, no, we don't need to go there. And
So how did these decisions affect the inmates there in the jail?
Yeah, so a lot of the times, when a patient goes in, when an inmate goes into the jail, if they need urgent medical care, there are often long reviews before they were able to be admitted to the hospital. If they needed a specialist to go see something, they often had to wait a long time. The doctor was saying how oftentimes when inmates go to the jail, it's a chance for them to recover. They get off drugs, they get their meds on time, they get sleep, but that wasn't the case for many inmates who were admitted to the jail there.
And staying with Fresno, what's the history with Fresno as far as medical providers at the jail?
Yeah, so this isn't the first time Fresno County Jail's medical provider has been in controversy. Back in 2015, there was a lawsuit against Fresno County Jail alleging the same sort of substandard care. Part of the settlement agreement was that Fresno County came up with a remedial plan guaranteeing a minimum level of care in order to, settle this lawsuit. And part of why they went with this CFMG or WellPath was to get away from that previous contractor and make sure that inmates were still getting that.
And it's interesting to hear this company WellPath again, because in fact I covered a story with WellPath in Monterey County. So with that being said, are there other allegations against WellPath and CFMG in other counties besides Fresno and Monterey County?
Yeah, well, like you said, over in Monterey County, they're still fighting with WellPath and saying that it's not providing the level of care they want, even though they've got an independent reviewer there. Up in Alameda County, WellPath just settled a lawsuit about an inmate who had been dead in the cell for 3 days. Nurses and guards were just piling up food and medication. That's plenty of counties, and WellPath itself across the country has had over 1,500 lawsuits against it alleging substandard care. This is before it went into bankruptcy, and much of that bankruptcy settled a lot of those lawsuits.
And speaking of the bankruptcy, real quick, how did that bankruptcy affect those cases?
Yeah, so over in Monterey County, it put a stay on a lot of the judges' settlements. And then for those 1,500 lawsuits, a lot of those, the company WellPath brought a lot of those settlements. They now became private equity they became equity holders, shareholders in that. So, it was a very complicated bankruptcy.
A lot of good information there. Edward Smith with GV Wire. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this Wired Wednesday.
Thank you.
Great day. We'll be right back.